and welcome to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. We talked a little bit in the last couple of episodes about the Four Noble Truths and then the Eightfold Path. Today, I want to go a little bit deeper into that and talk about the five virtues. Now, the Eightfold Path is more of a Buddhist framework, right, for reducing suffering. And it does that through wisdom, ethical living, and mental discipline in those eight elements. So I'm not going to call them steps because, as we covered, it's not steps, it's a whole approach that is more circular in nature. So the five virtues, they're taught by Master Choa Kok Sui, and he was the founder of Pranic healing. So he taught those within Pranic healing and Arhatic yoga, and it's more of a character building framework. So rather than focusing primarily on philosophy, the five virtues focus on cultivating the actual qualities that are needed to embody the spiritual principles in everyday life. And so one of them is more, this is the path you need to follow. And the other one is, here's the muscles that you develop in order to follow that path. So they kind of line up quite nicely. They kind of come together really quite nicely. And I thought it would be just an additional element of information that if this is something that has interested you and you are looking at building, hang on, I can't speak, building a more fulfilling life, even amongst all of the noise and everything that happens for us from a personal perspective, community perspective, global perspective, environmental perspective, etc., then this would be nice one to just dovetail into that. So the five virtues are kind of presented as five pairs, right? So each of them describe a particular quality that you can cultivate and a tendency to avoid. So they're kind of lined up in a little bit like that. So let's start with the first one. You'll see what I mean. So the first one is loving kindness and non-injury. And this one's kind of considered as one of the foundation of all of the values. And it asks us to choose compassion over judgment, right? It asks us to respond with kindness rather than anger or frustration or any of those other elements. It also asks us to avoid harming others through our thoughts, through our words, and through our actions. And so, one of the key teachings is that non injury isn't just physical, because words, attitudes, intentions can also cause harm. And if I go back to something that I mentioned in that last episode about our intentions on other people, and when someone does us harm, how we can start thinking and intending harm for them. Yeah, not cool, because that doesn't fit in with the loving kindness and non-injury. And this is where a lot of practitioners will say, send them loving light, send them all of the really good things, bless them, wish them well, all of those sorts of things. And in another episode, we'll probably cover how that actually connects with you on an energy basis and a chakra level. But just quickly, when you are wishing other people well, that's reducing things like jealousy and that ill intent and resentment. And so jealousy and resentment and stuff can clog up your energy centers, which then create blockages, which then prevent you from getting things like abundance or being able to express and feel love at a really deep level. So we want to avoid that in any way that we can, right? And how we can look at how we do this is, how do I speak to people? How do I speak to myself? And in the way that I live every day to day, am I creating healing or am I creating hurt? Now, again, following the middle path on this, this is about a lot about intent, but also about how we show up. Now, this doesn't mean that we put ourselves second to everyone around us. And so the people pleasers out there, I'm talking to you right now, because the am I creating healing or creating hurt aspect, sometimes we will go and do things because, oh, we don't want to upset that person and we don't want to do this and we don't. So we'll put ourselves out. That then goes into then feeling resentment. And when we feel resentment for someone, then we're not wishing them well, right? So that comes back into the loving kindness and non-injury. So it's okay to have boundaries for ourselves in this space as well. It's just that when we show up, we want to show up in a way that is actually not intended to cause any injury for anyone else. And so again, goes back to those little witchy things that people do with their little rituals and spells and things like that. If you're into that sort of thing, just be careful, because if you're not doing them with full loving kindness and non-injury, that's going to come back at you. And I think I'm not sure which episode it was, but I've already used this example and I'll use it again here. If there's someone in your life that you don't want in your life, I think I use the example of someone in your workplace, right? There's someone in your workplace that you don't connect with that's causing you a lot of pain and drama and things like that. Instead of wishing for them to lose their job, right? You can wish for them to get another job opportunity that has more pay, is more aligned with them, has better hours, right? So the outcome is still the same. The outcome is they leave the workplace. But being conscious of how you're manifesting that, what you're putting out on an energy level in order to make that happen. So wishing them well and a new opportunity still gets them out of your life. And that falls into this loving kindness and non-injury, right? You're still trying to set something up for yourself, and you can do that without harming others along the way. So the second one is generosity and non-stealing. And this goes beyond just financial aspects and cash and money, right? Generosity includes other things like how much time you give to particular aspects. Whether for me, I volunteer my time for various non-profits. I also volunteer my time at the school. I try and give time to people that I love. Those sorts of things fall into the giving time element. And are we generous with our time? Also, giving encouragement, the sharing of knowledge, offering patience and non judgment, celebrating other people's success, right? So all of those things fall into the generosity element of what we're doing. So it also does mean money, 100%. If you can donate money every time you get paid, even if it's a small amount, you're showing the universe that money to you comes freely and you're happy to use that as a resource to improve other people's lives. And so by doing that, the universe goes, well, you know what? Let's throw some more your way then. So that is when you're looking at abundance and manifestation of money, they will often say, donate, give money to something, but make sure it aligns with your values. So if you're donating money to a cause that is dodgy and causes harm to other people, then you're not going to get the karma back for that, right? Because you're actually supporting something that creates harm. And so I saw a recently on socials, there's a particular political figure that's raising money, and the whole messaging that they send out is negative messaging, misinformation, etc., etc. Yet they've raised a lot of money, and it pains me because one, it's grifting, right? But especially when they've got billionaires that are supporting them, they don't need that money. But two, those people unknowingly have given money to this cause that has a lot of negative energy attached to it. And so they're actually showing energetically that they're supporting this, which doesn't come back in a good space. So when we're looking at, so that was a generosity part of generosity and non-stealing. When we're looking at non-stealing, again, this is broader than just taking someone's possessions, right? Just picking up someone's wallet or taking someone's car or anything like that. Excuse me. It also includes not taking credit that belongs to someone else. And you'll often hear in a lot of the work that I do, I will note where I've got that information from, whether that was a book and an author, not recognizing Master Choa Kok Sui as the generator of these five virtues, that I do because one, I'm an academic and I think crediting people's work is super important because I don't like stealing of ideas. And two, it falls into this virtue, right? And I remember once I was at a conference, and one of the speakers there is another kind of motivational speaker, and they're a life coach. And we were just having a conversation, and they said to me, I noticed that when you're talking and when you're presenting, you're crediting a lot of other people's work. And to me, this is her interpretation, not speaking from me, but from her, in her point of view. To me, that seems like you don't have a lot of confidence in yourself and the things that you put together in your ideas and concepts. And I was a bit taken back by that, to be honest. It triggered me a little bit. And I'm like, oh, I'm not sure that I agree with you there, because I think it's very important to credit where the information comes from. One, I don't like stealing ideas. And two, if anyone in the audience wants to dive deeper, then they've got the pathway and the process to be able to dive deeper. Again, going into I hate misinformation, right? Give me the sources. I want to know where it comes from. So she followed that up with a question, and she said, yeah, but how is your self confidence? Because it makes me feel like you don't have a lot of confidence in yourself. And at this point, I'm really fighting not the triggers, but the judgment, right? Because this person's a life coach and they should be encouraging people, not critiquing them at this level. So obviously, I've probably in some point in time like triggered them in some way for them to have this conversation. And so I just looked at them and I said, I think I'm shit hot, to be honest. And they kind of were a bit taken back. And I said, I'm not going to get up in front of people and show arrogance in saying that I think I'm amazing or the best at what I do, because I also have been humbled enough to know that I'm still learning myself. I might have acquired a whole heap of knowledge that I can take and share, example in the form of this podcast. Does that mean that I don't have more things that I could learn? No way, 100% not. Does that mean that I need to steal other people's ideas and try and take them off as my own? 100% not. I've got enough confidence in myself to know that I know my shiz, right? I know what I'm talking about. And so I can credit other people. So it also includes with that not wasting other people's time and not draining other people emotionally. So if we're going into that space of stealing, if we're stealing their time and stealing their emotions, that's or their energy, that's not great. Respecting boundaries is also another thing that falls in there. So, stealing, non-stealing is not stealing their confidence, I suppose, by overstepping boundaries, right? If they've got boundaries, then we respect them, because otherwise we're stealing space that doesn't belong to us. And so pranic healing itself also links generosity with the principle of karma. So what we consistently give tends to shape what we get over time. And so if we're constantly giving all of these things, encouragement, time, patience, celebrating other people, giving and donating a little bit of money, that's going to be attracted back to us. If we're taking, then that's going to also be attracted back to us. And so it's very important to see where we sit in that space. The third one there is accurate perception, correct expression, and non falsehood. So this one is really cool because it really connects in so well and with psychology. It's so relevant to psychology, and it asks us to see the situation clearly. Right? Avoid assumptions and avoid the distorted thinking that comes with stories created from our assumptions, and to be able to communicate honestly and appropriately. So it's not just about not lying or telling ourselves don't lie. It's about recognizing that we often create suffering because we mistake our interpretation for reality, right? And so, someone who's working with subconscious beliefs, this connects beautifully to questions like, is this actually true? Or is this an old story my subconscious has been repeating? Or have I got a limiting belief that's leading me down the path of trying to validate this? Those sorts of things. And pranic healing notes that this virtue encompasses a few aspects of the Buddhist Eightfold Path. And again, this is not being false. This is finding that place of authenticity. It's about looking at things in the right way, not from places of wounding. It is about being honest in your communication. It is about knowing no, saying no, and knowing no is a full sentence, right? And being okay with saying no. It's about as well thinking about the concept of think though. Is it truthful? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? You know, when we're expressing things, we don't have to go out and be terrible to someone. If they're wearing a shirt that isn't appropriate for a job interview, just say, for example, we don't need to go and go, oh my God, is that the shirt you're wearing? Right? We can actually say, you look great, but do you think that shirt really represents what you want to be showcasing for this interview? I think you've probably got another one that would be better, right? Two different ways that come up. So it's the same element, but it's the way we've expressed it is different. And so being careful with when we're expressing with other people. I've spent a lot of time with people that use jokes as a cover for cutting people down. And even if their intention isn't to cut people down, that's what jokes do. I see a lot of people using jokes in the form of racism or gender sexism or ageism. And yeah, haha, it's funny, but that doesn't fall into the correct expression, right? There's still jokes and you can still be funny without putting other people down in the way that you do that. The fourth one, which is one that lines up very, very well with me, is constancy of aim and effort and non-laziness. Right? So this is about consistent, purposeful action. It's not so much about the hustle. It's not about burning yourself out. It's not about having perfection, but it is about consistently showing up. And recently, I think it was a couple of months ago, I started doing park chats on my social media platforms. And so every day I'll do, 4 to 6, sometimes a little bit more minutes of a different theme of something that I talk about and share my learnings with people on socials. And that I have consistently shown up and done. My podcast is another good example of that. I did have a break while I was doing some of this, my study around my PhD, because I was just really constrained with my time availability. But when that slowed down a bit, I jumped back into it. And so consistently showing up every week, dropping an episode. Are those episodes always perfect? If you've been listening to them, you know they're not. Stumble on words sometimes. Sometimes I'm probably not being 100% in some of the messages I'm trying to share. Like I'll listen to it back afterwards and I go, oh, I should have said this or I should have said that, right? I'm not out there hustling hard. I'm not burning myself out with it. I'm not making them perfect, but I'm doing them, right? And so this virtue is about remaining committed to your values. And even when we're showing up in life and our motivation disappears, continuing anyway, showing up repeatedly. And it's about perseverance with purpose. And so many people confuse inspiration with transformation. But transformation is what usually comes with consistent practice. For me, it's about showing up every morning and meditating. Sometimes I meditate and my mind is too active and I don't get the value out of it, but I show up anyway. Sometimes, because I continually practice that, I will have meditation experiences where I am way off and I'm fully blissing out, which is just amazing, right? Because I'm consistently showing up. The fifth one, the last one here, is moderation and non-excessiveness. And this is probably one of the most important ones of all, because this one encourages balance or that middle path, right? And it avoids the extremes. So it's looking at things that are not too much, but not too little at the same time. And it goes in nicely, ties in nicely with the constancy of aim and effort, because it's not about hustling hard and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing where you're not meant to be pushing. right? But it is about having moderation with that and going, oh, okay, how can I fit that into the scheme of things? If I really want to do this, I'm going to have consistency of aim and effort on this. However, I'm also understanding that I'm not going to be excessive with it, right? Because the non excessiveness comes in there too. And this is relevant for so many areas of our life. One of the areas I didn't do very well in was my work area. So when I was working in my corporate role, I was excessive. I was working all day, I was working all night. I had the goals I had. It wasn't just constancy of aim and effort. It was push, push, push. And I was even pushing some of the people around me as well. Some other examples of food. I've been guilty of that too. I like myself a little sugar, right? And so I've had to be careful about that, especially as I get older, that sugar doesn't really go well with the body health wise, right? And so I'm having to make sure that I'm moderate with that and not excessive. Exercise, technology as well. When you're on your phones, how are you excessive are you doing with that? When you're exercising, are you making consistency of aim and effort times, or are you just 100% focused on that all day every day and just obsess about it? Even with our spirituality, right? We have to live, whether you've got religious faith based elements or whether it's more an energy faith based element or whether it's just an agnostic spiritual element, whatever it is for you, we have to still function in the day to day material world, excuse me, as humans in the human being form with the emotions and experiences that come. And spirituality is about having experiences. And so just spending all day meditating and doing nothing else, hey, I hit constantly of aim and effort, but I'm excessive when I do that, right? I still have to show up and interact with the world around me. The same with emotions. When there's pain that comes through, I will feel the emotions, but I don't unpack there. I don't allow them to overwhelm me for a long period of time. I will then move into, okay, how am I going to process these emotions? What did this circumstance teach me? What can I learn from this? Was it an inner wound triggering? How am I going to heal that? What can I do next, etc.? Move into the eightfold path to stop the suffering. And ambition as well. I've got a lot of ambition. I've got a lot of dreams in my head that still haven't been realized. A lot of things out there that I'm still trying to manifest to come in. But I'm also make sure that I have that middle path and that balance in how I approach that. I've got a great work ethic, but I also have recognized my body needs rest. And so I need to find a space that can give both of those things. So, Master Choa Kok Sui described moderation as a form of self mastery, and learning to govern our impulses is so important over being governed by them. And again, three things that you control, the only three things. Say them with me: your behavior, the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you behave, right? And so being able to be the master of them rather than them being the master of us is what we're trying to achieve with these five virtues. And so I mentioned before how they dovetail really nicely with the Eightfold Path, and I'm going to talk a little bit more to that here. So if you look at the Eightfold Path of right view, that point there, that lines up very nicely with accurate perception, right? Because it's seeing reality really clearly. If we take right intention, then we align with the virtue of loving kindness, choosing compassion over ego. If we take right speech, then we've got correct expression of a virtue. Being honest and having kind communication with people. You can still get your message across. I mean, yesterday I was in a major shopping chain and I had purchased something from there and I took it back for a return because I no longer wanted it. And when I went back, they said, oh, you can't return this because it was a sale item. And I'm like, oh, I was never advised of that. And they're like, oh, well, that's our policy. So as I walked away, I went, oh, yeah, I don't know, that doesn't feel right to me. And so I went and I researched the phone. I went onto their website, looked at their policies of returns. Nothing said that you can't return a sale item. So I went back there and I said to her, I said, oh, look, I'm just wondering if you can show me that policy that says that I can't return this item because it's a sale item. And she looked at me like a deer in headlights. I said, I don't mean to be seeming difficult, but I've looked on the website and there's nothing there at all that says that you can't return something that was a sale item. So I'm trying to get more clarity on that. Again, still looked at me. And she looked at another employee that was sort of standing just off. And I'm like, look, if you'd like me to speak to someone else about this, I'm totally okay with that. So her colleague came over and she reiterated, it's a sale item. We can't refund it. I said, look, I understand that, but I'm looking for what policy, where that is and where that says that, because I wasn't advised it when I purchased the item. I haven't seen anything about it anywhere. And then when I researched the company's policies, it's not included. And she said, well, it's a store policy. I'm like, well, that's okay, but can you show me that policy, please, then, so that I can see it? And she kind of stepped back and she said, well, look, I'll let you go through and I'll let you get a refund on this just now. And I could sense that she was a bit annoyed by that. And I said, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And she also said, and now if you buy anything on sale, you know. And I went, yeah, I do. And if I did know before, I wouldn't have even purchased the item because I purchased it intending to return it if I found something else better, right, at another shop, but it was saving me going back. But then I did say to her, and I said, well, look, I don't know if it's worth looking into, but it might be great if you actually updated this online policy because I might not be the only person that looks further into this. And if you don't have it written somewhere, then you have to abide by the policies you do have written. And I said it in a very kind way. And she looked at me, she goes, yeah, actually, you're right. And I said, well, I'll just leave that with you, but I might not be the only one that this affects. And I got my refund and I walked out. Now, I've worked in retail before and I know that that would have been annoying, flat out, because anything that doesn't fit the mold is annoying. And, the customer, even though the customer is always right, nah, the customer's just annoying and self entitled and whatever. But I was like, for me, that was an $80 item and I wanted my $80 back. It wasn't like a $5 item, right? And so I also know that a lot of people that would have done that would have come back going, oh, I just read policy and it says nothing about it. So you need to give me a refund and just gone into an aggressive space, right? And wouldn't have communicated. But this is where it is important to have correct expression, right? It's not their fault. They didn't set the policy. They're just enacting it. But I, as a consumer, want to see where that policy is. Like this is a huge chain, a huge store that is, you know, run like all over the place. It's quite a big business. And and it's conglomerate as well, if the case, then they should have the structure around it that is needed, right? And there's also the consumer protection laws and things like that that are protecting the little person that buys something for $80 that now wants a refund on that from the multi-billion dollar earners, right? So although it's not their fault, and I understood that, they're just enacting what they've been told. Obviously, I still have a right to ask for that, but it's not what I'm saying, it's how I'm saying it. Right, the next one, right action. That lines up with non-injury, living ethically, not purposely going out to harm things. You've got right livelihood, which goes into that generosity, contributing positively to the world around us. The right effort, constancy of aim and effort, that consistent personal growth. I know that I'm probably not like many people because I have a constant focus on personal growth, but I also know that I'm here. My time here is about experiencing things as a human, and I want to experience it to the maximum of what I can get to experience. And for me, that means identifying when my experience was of a experience of suffering. And I don't want to live an existence where I'm continually experiencing suffering. I want to see the beauty in the world. I want to be able to contribute to a better world for other people. And that comes with consistent personal growth because as I heal, then I come into a place of self love, then I have more to give. The right mindfulness comes into the accurate perception and moderation, so that self-awareness and conscious living. And then right concentration comes in again with constancy of aim, so developing focus and discipline, right? So those virtues then obviously don't map one to one with the Eightfold Path, but they reinforce many of the same underlying principles, but just from a different perspective. So you might have heard the Eightfold Path and just gone, yeah, I got it. I'm going to run with it. I'm on this. Or you might have gone, okay, that's great, but it's not really giving me much. Whereas the five virtues jump in, and like I said, they help build the muscle that then aligns you with the elements of the path. So, the Eightfold Path is kind of like the map. It shows you the direction that you're going to be traveling in, but the five virtues are like those muscles you develop while you're walking that path, and they kind of become the qualities that help you stay on course. When your life becomes challenging, because you can have an opportunity of something going wrong and you can go, no, non-stealing, generosity and non-stealing. This is where I need to focus. And so, from a psychological perspective, the Path kind of tells us what to practice, and the five virtues tell us who we are becoming as we practice it. So, the five virtues as well, that yes, they align up with the Eightfold Path. Yes, they reduce suffering from that element. But what they also do is they set you up to be a good human, right? And when you're looking at things like karmic retribution or karmic setups, being a good human is really beneficial to do, right? Because the universe, God, source, whatever, recognizes how you show up in the world and amplifies that back to you. And so when we're becoming who we are, when we're becoming a person that falls into those five values as best we can, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. That's okay. We don't judge. We listen and we don't judge, right? So when we come into that space, we are becoming the best versions of ourselves, which then sets us up to go, well, this is what I'm doing for the world around me. Universe, God, source then goes, hey, have some of that back, and I'll amplify it, which is where some people you look at and you just go, gee, they're blessed. Gee, they're lucky. No, they've worked for that, right? You might, though, see some people that are horrible people that still seem blessed and lucky. That could be karma from another lifetime. And what they're doing in this lifetime isn't going to set them up for success later. So don't let what's going on around with anyone else influence you. Just focus on you. Stay in your own lane. You're not in competition with anyone else. You're in competition with yourself. And so I hope that now those three elements, you can see how they all link together, and that's given some food for thought and some value to you. And I look forward to serving you again in our next episode.